Welcome to Smart Branding, a podcast dedicated to branding, naming, and domain names. I'm Tatiana Bonneau, and with my guests, we try to help you create and grow strong, memorable, and meaningful brands online. I believe time is one of our most precious assets, and so I want to thank you in advance if you decide to spend the next 30 minutes with us. I promise to do my best to make those worth it. Let's go. So my guest today is Lee Wochner. He's a renowned organizational consultant with over 25 years of experience serving clients ranging from nonprofits to Fortune 500 companies. He's the founder of Counterintuity, where he helps nonprofits and public agencies with their marketing. I literally just noticed I have something on my skirt. Anyway, sorry. that was the breakdown there. Thank you for making the time. It's wonderful having you with us.
Well, it's nice to be here. And I just checked and I don't have anything on my skirt. So I think I'm...
That's good. That's good. We're good to go then. Let's start with a bit of a background. I always do that. So yeah, tell me how did you get to do what you're doing now?
Well, so a lot of my background is as a writer. And so I've been in business and in the arts and writing my entire life. So I started writing and sending things off to magazines when I was about 12 and started to get published when I was 14. And I started my first business when I was 12 as well. I bought and sold collectible comic books as collector's items through the mail. My father staked me $40 to start that business. And I ran that business for 8 years until I was 20.
Oh, wow.
So it was a lot of fun. As a writer, I'm a playwright, and I co-founded a theater 30 years ago. We just had our 30th anniversary, and the people in the theater, that's really a business that you're running because people have to show up at a certain time. The show has to start at a certain time. They had to park somewhere. You had to sell the tickets. You had to market it. I mean, it's a very business-oriented art form. Shakespeare was a producer as well as a playwright. So. What happened is people would start to come to me and say, oh, could you do some writing for me? Could you do some strategy for me? We don't know about our branding and our positioning and how we tell our story. And so 30 years ago, I started consulting for a number of different companies doing that sort of thing, writing for them. I wrote for hotels. I wrote for other marketing agencies. I wrote for a very well-known bank here in the United States. And I started doing work for nonprofits because I started to sit on nonprofit boards. And so a lot of my consulting took me to things like the California Citizens Budget Commission, I think it was, and things like that. I worked on City of Los Angeles charter reform in the 90s. And so you start to hear that there was a lot of writing, marketing, and branding work to do in that sector. And because I was a writer and also did a lot of nonprofit service, I was well suited to that. And so that brought me to here. And to give you the rest of that journey, my business partner and I had worked together in the theater a little bit. And then she actually has a background in advertising and marketing. That's her education. And so she had a small consultancy. I had a 2-person shop by this point. We merged our companies. And here we are. We're now in our 16th year at Counterintuity. Yeah.
That's quite a fascinating story. And I love the fact that like you came from a writing background, and it's even though it's very like obvious when you think about it, that marketing is a lot about, if not like pretty much all of it is about communication. And so storytelling, it still feels like storytelling is a very recent term, and like very recently people started calling it that and paying attention to it, at least to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but like I remember when I had an IT company about 18 years ago now. Yeah. Oh my God. My son is 18. That's why I counted that. And I was like, well, when did that go? But like the content on the website didn't seem that important at the time. Like we would do, the software, the presentation, everything. And people a lot of entrepreneurs and even like, decently sized companies would think, oh, I can just do it myself. It doesn't matter. It's like, it's not something that you need to hire somebody whose job it is, etc. How do you feel in your experience that has changed over time?
Well, there are things on a website that are written not to be read, except by bots. So, you can hide a lot of things in the code, and you can do a lot of small type on pages, and you can write big blog posts. And the goal there is to get Google to read them, and Google reads them and moves your position up in search engine optimization. But the things that you actually want real human beings to read had better have a point of view. And had better be scannable on a screen because the eye is going to scan it more than it reads it. And it had better tell that story quickly and be compelling. Reading is essentially pattern recognition. I was a literacy tutor, a volunteer years ago, and they teach you how to teach people how to read. So I was teaching adults how to read. And in English, if you try to sound things out by the spelling, and I would say the same thing in French because I studied French, it does not sound out the way it's spelled. So in English, the word numb, N-U-M-B, why is there a B on the end of it? And
French is even worse. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pattern recognition. And so when I was a newspaper editor, which I was at one point in my career, I became senior copy editor because I'm very good at pattern recognition and seeing at a glance something that was misspelled. So because people perform pattern recognition in their reading, when you're writing for print or digital, whatever you're writing for, if it's designed, it had better be scannable because that's how they're going to read it. Novels are read differently, obviously, but headlines, images, calls to action, things like that on a website, on any digital presence had better be designed to be understood at a glance. And so years ago here, we've won 48 major marketing awards over the years. One of them was for writing. For my work here, we won an award for the writing on a website, and the homepage had 4 words. But it told the story. Yeah, it had 4 words. But it told the story, and it just immediately communicated what they were about. So we won an award for 4 words.
Oh, what were the words? If it's not secret.
Oh, let's see. Strength was one. I can't even remember anymore. It was a very large industrial crane company. And so, we wanted to, they were getting calls from little old ladies who would say, my kitty cat is up in the tree. Can you send a crane? And, so we did big fisheye photos and we used very few words to communicate the scale of the operation. And so then all of their leads became the right leads.
That's cool. That's quite funny how you can sort of filter the audience, which is pretty much what everyone is trying to achieve ultimately. What about your own name, your own brand name, Counterintuity?
Yeah. So expertise is important, and but so is trying new things. And we have methods here of trying different things. And one of the things we do here is we do a Socratic method. And Socrates would gather his people around, and then they would discuss things and try to figure out the deeper meaning. And that's part of our effort here to work with particularly nonprofits and public agencies. Anybody can get a little stuck in their own world, right? So when I go to my house, I'm used to everything that's there in the house, including the 2 dogs who very joyously greet me at the door, right? Nobody is as happy to see me as those dogs, right?
Yeah.
And my son is, middling happy to see me, but the dogs are thrilled. But if you came to my house, you would recognize everything. You would see everything as new because you hadn't seen it before. And so at Counterintuity, we apply strategies that we have to think about things in fresh, new ways to try to get at the core meaning. And that process is a little counterintuitive. And if you don't do anything, you'll never do anything new unless you think counterintuitively and challenge your own experiences and your own wisdom.
That makes sense. And because I'm obviously involved in domain names, so I cannot escape the question. You got the matching.com domain name. What are your thoughts on the importance of doing that for brands, whether they're non-profit or for profit?
You mean of capturing all the various extensions, the various domain names?
Generally, on your opinion on the importance of domain names nowadays.
Well, in English, it's very hard to get them. It's very hard. Yeah. I mean, there are no, I think I read that there are no single English words available. And then people started to add go. So, go branding go, right? And go to branding go. And then all those got taken. And now people are doing things like how. So you get websites like Scribe How. And I think, I think it's important to get something that people can remember. On the other hand, if you are unique and tell your own story in a compelling way, people can find you through search. People can find you on social. There are lots of different ways to find you. So I think it's an important component, but it's a component among other components.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And that's oftentimes what I advise my clients as well. And it also really depends on the company itself, or the size of the company, the vision, the target market, so many things. It's just, I guess the important thing is to take that seriously and just use it as one of the tools that you have on your hands to create a strong brand. So do you only focus on nonprofits, or who do you work with generally?
So we have clients across the country. We work with I Love New York. That's a huge campaign in New York. We work with Grand Central Terminal in New York. We have a client, Journey Healthcare Solutions in Florida, which helps pair, travel nurses with where they can be of best use in the field. We work with University of Southern California, National Association for the Public Defense, Weingart Center, which helps break the cycle of homelessness. So there's a huge range of clients. Most of them are in the world improving business, because my partner and I are I guess we're just do-gooders, Tatiana. We just want to try to make the world a little better in our own way. And so we're drawn to the do-gooders. But we have some private industry clients, and always have. Ideal Pet Products. They're super nice people, and they do doors, pet doors for dogs and cats, and they have a line of other products, and it's a lot of fun to work with them. But most of our work is in nonprofit and public affairs. And part of the reason is, my partner and I both come from the nonprofit sector. There's an opportunity there for a little fresher thinking about some things. And if they can help make the world a better place, we all benefit. So we're keenly interested in helping them with that mission.
Absolutely. And isn't it like funny works with your brand and counterintuitive, but like you would have thought, when somebody is doing good, that should be good enough in itself for them to just say, okay, that's what we're doing, and it's good, and people get it, and people follow it and understand it, and etc. So, and on the other hand, there's like that. Marketing generally has that bad image of you're lying, you're selling things, and making people want to buy things they don't need. So you're basically kind of in the middle of that. They're doing good, and you're doing the marketing for the people who are doing good. Like how does that all work?
Well, the only thing so marketing is essentially about revealing the truth that's already there. So marketing is actually a very honest practice. When you're not marketing something that's actually there, we have a different word for it, and that's lying. There's no value in lying. I don't think so, right? The beauty of the internet is that people find out the liars very quickly. And so because marketing is about revealing the truth that's already there, it actually helps people who need resources find where they can go and what's available to them. We did a campaign for City of Santa Monica some years ago. City of Santa Monica had all sorts of programs it was investing in, and nonprofit organizations it was partnering with to provide these services to the residents of Santa Monica, but the services were underused because people didn't know about them. And so we set up a campaign, and part of what we did was we hired a whole bunch of at-risk youth. We trained them how to be bloggers, and we had them go around town, write up stories on the nonprofits and post them. All of the nonprofits got all sorts of attention. The campaign got newspaper coverage and television coverage, and everybody was really happy. And it was just the truth of what's already here, but now we help people see it. That's really what marketing is about, shining a spotlight on the things that are already there so people can see them.
That's a very cool campaign. How do you feel is marketing different for nonprofits, for your type of clients, than it is for like for-profit businesses, or is it at all?
I think there's an overlap. The nonprofits, if they're selling something, like yesterday, I was editing copy for a client doing a big fundraising event, right? And so one could claim they're trying to sell tickets and sponsorships to the fundraising event. I view it a little differently. Homelessness is a major, major problem in Los Angeles. My client helps break the cycle of homelessness by giving people the resources they need and the training and the housing to get them off the streets and into a new situation to start over. And so I want them to sell those tickets, and I want people to buy those sponsorships. And I know that this organization is very successful, and that everybody can feel good about it because you've made this donation or this sponsorship. You've enjoyed a day at the fundraiser, and you know that your money is going to assist with this mission. So, in both cases, whether you are selling Coca-Cola or you are selling tickets to a fundraiser, you are trying to sell something and you're trying to create awareness. The end profit for Coca-Cola is it creates jobs, which people need to work, right? And it creates some enjoyment because there are people who love Coca-Cola. And then on the other side, what it does is it alleviates a problem, which will create enjoyment and positivity for people in a different way. So there is a big overlap. A lot of similarity. I think when it comes down to the profit aspect, Tatiana, it might be a little different. So Coca-Cola's main mission is to make a profit, as well as they're trying to make a positive impact in the world as well. The other folks, they're not as profit driven. Their metrics, the way they track this, their goals, they're all a little different because they're trying to make an improvement in people's lives in a very different way.
Something like I would like to, if you can highlight some common mistakes that you see the type of organizations you work with make, and I'll try and, because I've done like a little bit of, but it's not even work. It's more like I've been involved in local nonprofits, but more as just a donor, not in the marketing part. And something that I've noticed, and I don't know if it's symptomatic to the industry, is that because it's nonprofit, people seem to be very dismissive of their own, whether it's services, work, like they undervalue it because it's nonprofit. Do you find that's a thing? Like they would, sell something for less because they're nonprofit, and they're like nervous that, we can't ask for more because we're nonprofit, that sort of thing. What do you feel are the mistakes you feel nonprofits make most of?
Okay, so the thing you're talking about is a lack of confidence to some degree, and almost everybody has that, and the people who don't have that might be a little sociopathic. They may be a little damaged, right? I mean, in various ways, everybody has a little bit of lack of self-confidence. And that's why it's helpful to have a third party walk you through what is it you're trying to do. The who, what, where, when, why, and how. What do you do? Who is it for? Why are you doing it? How are you doing it? What's the impact? When is it happening? All of those things. And to get them a little pick me up. So I got home the other night, and my son is 20, and he took a break from college, and he was here in the US when we had the pandemic. The schools shut down, and so he missed out. His senior year was remote, so he didn't get a senior prom. He didn't get a graduation ceremony, and he dated a number of girls up to that point. And then, school is over. And he works for himself. He runs his business out of my house. So he was kind of kicking around a little lonely. And so I said to him, you need to go back to school. You'll meet other girls to date. You'll have more things going on. Your friends come over occasionally, but it's not enough. So I go home night before last, and I said, are you registered for school? He said, yes. He had the meeting. And I said, that's really great. That's terrific. It'll be great for you. It'll be really fun. And he goes, well, I don't know if it'll be great. I mean, I don't know. And he starts to unspool the negativity. And I said, let me reset your expectations for you. Okay. You can hang out here 24/7 with the dogs doing nothing while I'm home occasionally because I work a lot, or you can go back to college, meet a series of attractive young women, learn all sorts of things and broaden your horizon and have more fun. Which is it going to be? And he went, oh, well, when you put it that way, and I said, that's the way it is. And he was stuck in his perspective. And what you hear is, I brought a different perspective right away. That's one of the things that we do with our clients. And so if you are in your industry, right, nonprofit, if you're running a department for a city, let's say, we do work with cities as well, right? You are locked into, and these are really smart people, really smart, capable people. They have a tunnel vision about what they're doing, and we try to widen the tunnel, right? And so they want to communicate everything right away. And so here's one of the things they do that I would call a mistake. They will vomit out 1,000, 10,000 words about something and want it all in a communication. And my perspective is this should be 50 words or 3 words. Let me help you with that, because no one is going to read all of this. And I say to them, I still read great Russian novels. Most people don't. They're not. They don't have the energy to read 1,000 pages of Tolstoy or whatever. We have to recognize the behaviors of your target market, and they're people who live in your city and they're busy and they came home and what you're saying to them is stuffed in the water bill or something, or they came across it in some other communication. They're going to glance at. What do you want them to know? And you cannot tell them 19 things at the same time. What is the main thing? How do we get them involved? What's the main thing you need to communicate? And so, when you focus on immediate takeaways, focus takes you far. And we say to people all the time, focus. Let me help you focus. Let's focus on this. How do we do this? And when you take that perspective, and then you say, most people are good people, which is true. How do you make it immediately understandable for them and actionable, because they want to do better? They do. Sometimes people get cranky on the internet, of course, and there's the narrow sliver of awful people, right? But most people are good people. They're busy. They just want to do better. We can help them do better with.
I completely agree, actually, with that last point on the internet. I think my next question is going to be, how do you feel technology has changed and affected the way we communicate and the way you help people communicate? And that, I think, is one of the things where it's so easy to be like dismissive or nasty on the internet. And it's interesting how, from a business perspective, whether it's a non-profit or for-profit business, but when you communicate it with the audience, to make that, or what to make of it generally, because people, like, I have that with clients where on email, they would be like really, really, edging on rude. And then we get on a call and it's nothing like that. And like, if you imagine as a company, you have like a lot of people like that. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So first we should note for listeners that you are in France and I'm in Los Angeles, California, United States. So there's a communication story right there. And when I was a boy, I grew up in a very rural area on the East Coast of the United States, kind of out in the woods. And there was no one to play with and no way to communicate with anyone. And so I got very involved in comic books, particularly Marvel comics. And the way you would meet people is if you got a letter printed in Marvel comics, they would print your name and your address and we would write to each other. And so I made friends that way. There was nobody else around, right? So now we have this thing called the internet. And I have friends across the United Kingdom and in Belgium and in France and elsewhere who have unified behind things we care about, including a band called Per Ubu that I'm crazy about and we're crazy about. And I've gone across the US. I've gone to London, to England twice, and I've gone to Spain to hear Per Ubu play, right? And
I've never heard of that. I'm writing it down.
And it's named after the first Theater of the Absurd play written by Alfred Jarry, which was Ubu Wa, King Ubu. And so the lead character is Per Ubu. So without the internet, it would be almost impossible for us to meet and us to socialize. And we are a tribe that belongs together. So the other thing I would say on this topic is we used to think that what separated human beings from apes was the size of our brain, right? We have bigger brains, so we can communicate, and therefore we're separate than they are. More recently, evolutionary scientists have decided that it's the communication that led to us having bigger brains. And so communication is at the heart of humanity. It's what separates us. Crows communicate. I hear them every day when I go by my house. I have a lot of crows, and I can hear them chuckle when I'm walking up because they're warning other birds that there's a human here, but they don't communicate at our level. So what's happened here with the internet, we are in a period of great change. And it's because now all of the communication is instantaneous and everybody knows everything instantly. So 150 years ago, when the stock exchange was having a problem, you had to wait on the ticker if you had access to a stock ticker, and it might take you days to find out what's going on. And now everyone knows in a millisecond. And so we used to talk about periods of upturns and downturns in the economy, and they were long and slow. And now we're in a period where we're going to have constant turbulence because the communication is instantaneous and change happens rapidly. And so the question isn't going to be, is it turbulent today or not? The question is going to be, is it turbulence level 1 or turbulence level 5?
Absolutely. On that, you mentioned now technology. So that's definitely something, and especially like with storytelling, copywriting, and there's been the craziness around artificial intelligence writing things, and it's actually like mind-blowingly good. Mm-hmm. How do you feel that's affecting or will affect what you do, for example?
So because I'm a playwright, I can tell you GPT cannot write subtext. And communication is filled with subtext. So and if you go to see a lot of plays in particular, you can hear the subtext behind what's going on, right? Because people who, like, if you say to me, Lee, how are you doing? And I say, fine. Well, it doesn't sound fine, right? It sounds, that's subtext. It's the way I delivered it. In American English, how are you? I'm fine actually means not fine, in a way that, oh, he's so cool versus she's so hot. I don't think ChatGPT understands these things yet. We'll see if it ever does, right? But language is conditional. It's conditioned by subtext. I heard recently, content is king, but context is God. And ChatGPT has a role. If you want to crank out a lot of hamburgers in the way McDonald's cranks out hamburgers, ChatGPT will do an awesome job. If you want a gourmet meal, I know it can't do that now, and I don't know how quickly that's coming. And so what it does is it elevates the craftsmanship of real writers and makes those writers more valuable than ever, because everything else is being commoditized.
Absolutely agree with you on that. That's, I've been having obviously a lot of conversations on that topic, and I feel the same way. I feel like if you're really good at what you're doing, whether it's, it could be useful like in scientific terms, in art, in whatever, but it's enhancing something that you have to already have. Otherwise it can go actually pretty wrong.
So in the US in the 50s, in late 40s, we started to get Levittowns. Levittowns were developments of all of the houses look the same. We've bought up all of this land. All of the houses look the same. And they were very profitable, and people needed places to live. And there was also a role for Frank Lloyd Wright, to the brilliant architect, to develop individual houses that made stunning statements. The same applies to ChatGPT versus actual writers. There's a role for Levittown and ChatGPT, and there's a role for actual human writers.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. What's next? What's like new and exciting for you and your company this year?
We are restructuring how we work so that we can take on even more work. I'm pretty excited about that. We are honing in on changing our own branding, actually, and I mean mostly the design of the branding. And so we have some exciting things coming up in how we're going to represent ourselves out in the field and to the clients. I'm really excited about the work that some of our clients are doing. Environmental consciousness is at the forefront of every conversation anymore, and that's exciting. And knowing the advancements in technology, knowing the greater awareness of the impact on the environment that everyone has, I can look young people in the eye and tell them, I think we'll be okay because we're all working on this. And so I'm very excited about that global trend. I think that is a global trend. And I'm very excited about what my company is going to be doing to help people communicate what they're doing to help make the world a better place.
I love that. Yeah, that's a wonderful way to end this podcast. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. And I have to say again, what a gift the internet is, and getting to meet you and have this conversation from across the Atlantic, or in my case, perhaps Pacific. If we can have global conversations in 2023, what else will technology bring us to solve problems and bring people together? I can't wait to see it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for joining us in this episode of Smart Branding Podcast. Feel free to visit smartbranding.com for more information and reach out if you have any suggestions, questions, ideas, or just want to learn more about how a good domain name strategy can help you build a strong and successful brand. See you next time.